Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Grey's Anatomy, Season 4, Episode 1, A Change is Gonna Come. The episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So as always, we will start with our featured patients. So the first patient, well, actually, all of the patients in this episode are accident victims who have come in for treatment at the hospital. We have a woman who is pregnant who has her arm severed. Luckily, the arm is found and able to be reattached. However, during the reattachment surgery, while she's under anesthesia, her baby ends up being delivered, but it is a smooth and safe delivery with no complications to the baby. So that's a good thing. And the baby happens to be a boy, which is also adorable. Well, it would have been adorable either way, but fun fact, I should have said. We then have another man who basically has a dislocated knee, or it's a fractured knee, I can't remember, but the main thing about him is that he actually has pica, which is a mental disorder that causes you to eat non-edible items. And he does complain about being hungry from the moment he gets out of the ambulance, but they just kind of write it off as a sign that he's not super traumatized because having a healthy appetite after trauma is considered a good thing. However, that is when they then leave him unattended, and we first see him eating a bunch of cotton balls. And then when Alex next comes into the room, his clamps and his gauze cutting scissors and other implements are also missing, and the man starts to code. They then get him into the operating room with Bailey, realizing that he has eaten the clamps and the scissors and Crumble's coins, a whole bunch of other things, and that it ended up perforating his abdomen, which is why he had his issues, but that was also an interesting case. Then we have another man with a family who was alone in the car, thank goodness, because his family was completely fine. But the injuries that he had, at first when he arrived, everyone thought he was dead. However, then he takes a breath. They realize he isn't dead. And then upon getting an x-ray, they page Shepard immediately because the man's spine is completely severed. So basically it's flesh and muscle holding his head on, his bones are not there, so he has to go in for surgery. And the family does have a sweet moment when they come in to say potential final goodbyes. However, I say potential because he does get through the surgery fine, and the family then is able to be brought in to see him, which implies a happy ending for that patient. And then last but not least, a little boy comes in and begs Izzy to save her because she's banged up pretty bad. She was in an accident. When they get out there, they realize the she he was talking about was a deer, and the dad's like, "We're gonna take this deer home and eat it." And the son's like, "No, we can't do that. We have to save it. It could be saved. She's blinking. She's still alive." So Izzy, being the empathetic person that she is, decides to save the deer, and she actually does manage to save the deer, and we do see it walking into an animal control vehicle afterwards, presumably to go to the vet and then eventually be re-released back into the wild. So happy ending for the deer as well. And now we'll move on to the dramas. So first off, Alex, Izzy, Christina, Meredith. They've all been promoted to residents now that they're done their intern year and passed the intern test. George is held back and is repeating his intern year, and he has some dissatisfaction with that. However, when he's the one who helps to deliver the baby, having had that extra experience, nobody else knows he's repeating his year, and so they're all really highly impressed with the fact that he delivered a baby on his first day, and this gives him a little bit more of a confidence boost, which leads to him then telling Izzy that he loves her back at the end of the episode. After mid-episode, she confronts him about the fact she confessed before the wedding, and he did not respond then, and it had been 17 days since then. Christina went on her honeymoon alone, snorkeled in, I think she said it was Hawaii. And then came back expecting to see Burke, but is told by Derek that Burke has left the hospital, gave his resignation letter, no longer there. Um, so she won't get that closure of being able to see him again. It's revealed that Derek and Meredith have not spoken since the wedding either. However, at the end of the episode, Meredith chooses to talk to him instead of Lexi, and they officially break up, but then proceed to be physically intimate together. So, um, breakup intimacy. And then, of course, I mentioned Lexi. Lexi is Meredith's half sister. She wasn't aware she had a half sister until a couple months ago. She tells George about how, like her mom went in for hiccups, ended up at a funeral. She was originally going to do her internship at Mass Gen. Now she's here because it's local. That Thatcher has been drinking so much so that he doesn't even know what year it is. And that the sister that she thought she would get to meet and connect with doesn't want anything to do with her. And that is where Lexi is at this moment. But she is willing to be there for George anyways, and is part of why he gets that confident boost as she tells the rest of the interns about how he gave um, helped a baby born on his very first day because she knows he's repeating the year, but nobody else did, and so um, that is why basically he gets that confidence boost at the end. And then, of course, Lexi goes and tries to talk to Meredith. And then Derek comes up, and between Meredith and Derek, Meredith would rather, or between Lexi and Derek, Meredith would rather deal with Derek. So she goes off with him, leaving Lexi kind of just standing there. And Alex states that he misses Rebecca, and it is revealed in these 17 days that were off screen while everyone was kind of on vacation or off. He took a trip in the direction of Rebecca, but never actually went to visit her. And then, of course, there's the chief resident issue where Callie was chosen over Bailey. Bailey is upset about this or speechless about this, and she refuses to speak to Richard about it, who keeps trying to have a conversation with her. Eventually, he corners her in the OR and basically tells her that the reason he didn't choose her for chief resident is because the chief resident has less OR time, and Bailey is an amazing surgeon and will be an amazing surgeon, and he would rather she get that extra practice time in the ORs rather than juggling schedules and paperwork, which are things that, she doesn't need to be a good surgeon. And he says that she'll thank him for it one day, but she, of course, says that day is not today. Then there's, of course, the fact that, like, everybody respects Bailey and wants to go over Callie's head to Bailey, even though Callie's technically over Bailey's head right now, and no one's really listening to Callie, and even when she tries to be strict, people just aren't really listening to her at this point, so she hasn't really found her legs as the chief resident yet. And secretly, her husband, who she is trying to have a baby with, is going off and telling other women that he's in love with them. So I feel a little bit bad for Callie in this episode, but that's essentially what all of the key points of the episode were. I probably missed a few. There was a lot going on. There were a lot of introductions of other interns that are assigned to each of them, but each of them gets a whole group of interns. Some of them will continue on into other episodes. Most will fade into obscurity. And so, again, that is the summary. Now that we've been reminded what happened in the episode, we will now rank the episode, first on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. And we have our single episode supporting character introductions, and these are most of our patients. So we have Chris and his son Michael, who are the ones who bring in the deer. We then have Henry Flynn and Cara Flynn, or Clara Flynn, who are the couple. The Henry is the one who has his spine severed. Clara is his wife who comes in. They also have 2 children. Nancy Walters is the one who had her arm severed and had a baby. And then Joey is the one with pica. Then we have the multi-episode supporting character introduction, which was one of the interns named Mitch. He's only present in a few episodes in this season. We then get a supporting relationship development, which is George saying he loves Izzy. I still don't remember if they actually ever end up dating or not, but I'm calling it supporting relationship because I don't think it goes very far. But this is a pretty big milestone all the same, though I didn't give points for Izzy saying she loves him, so. Anyways, the multi-season supporting character introductions. These are the interns that will carry on throughout the series. Well, not the series, but like the next 3 seasons or so. Well, really the next two, some into like the first couple episodes of the 6. But anyways, we have intern Steve, intern Danny, intern Claire, intern Grazilla, intern Megan, intern Lucy, and then intern Leo. And then we have the impactful, memorable moment line, etc., which of course is Izzy treating a deer because that's hilarious and so worthy of being remembered. Then our multi-season main character developments. Of course, again, Izzy, Alex, Meredith, and Christina become residents. George has to repeat his intern year and is assigned to be Meredith's intern. And Lexi, then, we learn about, um, well, since we last saw her in the bar, well, it's revealed to Meredith that Lexi was the girl in the bar, and she was like, I was supposed to be the girl in the bar, like, stole her spot. Um, Lexi, of course, is ignored by her sister. Lexi used to have a plan to go to Mass Gen for her internship. She didn't plan to be here. Then her mother died, and then she was at the funeral, and then Thatcher's now a drunk, and we learn all of these things through her this episode. So basically, a big life update on Lexi and also through her Thatcher. Then we have the negative points, which is a supporting relationship, regression, or breakup. Um, George says he loves Izzy. He's married to Callie. This is obviously a big regression in their relationship if he's telling another woman he's in love with her. And then we have the main relationship, regression, or breakup, which, again, Meredith and Derek haven't spoken since the wedding. And at the end of the episode, they do make their breakup official, though, again, they are physically intimate, so we know that that's not going to last very long. And then we learn that Burke has completely left the hospital, which again completely severs any chance of reconciliation between him and Christina, or even closure to that relationship. Um, However, there were so many characters introduced, the points are so high that even those negatives aren't going to change anything, and we are at a 10 out of 10 for this episode. Bringing us to the season 4 ranking so far, which is exactly one episode, A Change is Gonna Come. Personal relationship, not relationship, personal ranking for this episode, I decided to give it a 9. I didn't think that there was much negative about it. There was no real negative messaging or behaviors. The full breakup of Christina and Burke really happened in the last episode. This just eliminates any chance of reconciliation or closure on that. So that the fact that he's left the hospital. So it is what it is. Meredith and Derek, of course, no longer in a relationship, but still being physically intimate, so they'll go from friends with benefits probably back to relationship fairly quickly, therefore not really going to bother with that. All of the patients in this episode were interesting. Izzy with the deer, George's attitude through most of it, he was being a bit of an a-hole, and that was called out by the other residents because he kind of kept refusing to talk to them. Overall, like I felt like as far as a first episode of a season, especially with such a big change in that there is, now the promotion to residents, a whole bunch of new interns. I think that they did a very good job on it, but there also were a lot of characters. It was pretty overwhelming. A lot of people just kind of crowding around, standing around. You don't really know, if not for the internet, you wouldn't really know who was important, who wasn't important yet, who was going to recur, who was going to fade into obscurity. And, I think that the patients being so interesting alongside the drama made for a very jam-packed episode, but also when it's very jam-packed without little focus, that can sometimes not be as entertaining or as engaging as something that's more focused on like a specific storyline with like little subplots along the side complementing that main storyline. So I did really enjoy this episode. Again, Lexi was one of my favorite recurring characters, so I'm glad that she's here now. And overall, like I said, it was a very strong episode, 9 out of 10, but I didn't give it a 10 because of those things that I mentioned before, the overwhelming number of characters, the trying to jam too much in too short of time, the feeling like you're getting a bunch of small stories without like any sort of real focus on any of them. But as it is the first episode, I forgive most of that. So again, 9 out of 10. A Change is Gonna Come is in first place for now. And on our mostly objective ranking, We have season 1 in first place at 77.78%, season 2 in second at 76.67%, and season 3 in third with 66.52%. And season 4 has 10 out of a possible 150 so far. The personal ranking is basically the reverse. Season 3 is in first place with 77.39%, season 2 in second at 72.22%, season 1 third at 66.67%, but season 4 is starting off strong with a 9 out of 150. And with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Grey's Anatomy season 4, episode 1. A change is going to come. I just recalled as well, Addison also left the hospital, obviously, because she's in the spin-off series, which I think I addressed at the end of the last episodes, but forgot to mention it again here. She's gone from Grey's Anatomy for now. So like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.